This is Big Bear and you're in Big Bear's backyard, and today we are going to talk about wine closures. When you're talking wine closures, you're talking about being screwed, plugged or waxed, and we're going to take a journey through the pros and cons and the history of each right here in Big Bear's backyard. Stay tuned. Look, if you go back into ancient times, and we're talking way back Italy, 600 BC, wine was transported in clay vessels called amphoras, and they were sealed shut with clay, resins, or even wax. So, saying that, wax has been used for hundreds of years. In fact, way back in 600 BC, they were using wax to seal the wine from oxidation. A solid waxing. Now, this is my personal favourite. It is decorative, it is protective, and it will stop that oxygen from getting in. It preserves freshness and quality, and also adds a touch of real luxury. Now, I love a good waxing because it's nice and clean. It can be customised, you can put designs on it, it looks great. There is also potential negative where this waxing will 100% stop the oxygen from getting into your wines, which may restrict the aging ability of your wines. Now, given that this is the thin Shiraz 2018 with a solid 30, 40, 50 year potential cellaring, then I don't think these guys have been too concerned with that either. But it is a consideration that you might want to take into account. No one likes the taste of wax, so when you peel it back, you got to make sure you remove it all. There's another negative to add to your list. Progressing in history into the Middle Ages, wine began to start to get transported and stored in barrels. Now, barrels are great because they offer more room and more volume in. However, they were prone to spoilage the longer they were transported and held for. So back then, the quality was not quite as good as the quality we have in our barrels now. In and around the 1700s, we started to get wines stored and transported in glass bottles. These were more elegant, they were more durable, they were more hygienic, and at about 1680, the preferred method of closure became to be a cork. For the last 300 years, the cork has been the closure of choice. It has remained durable, long-lasting, allows oxygen in. What more do you want? It's lasted that long. Nothing has changed. Let's move on to corking. Now, this is very traditional, and it is the cork that comes from a tree. It's shaped and put nicely here in the wine. Now, traditionalists would say that this is a very traditional way of bottling wine, and it's an elegant way of bottling wine. And it also, for a pro, allows some oxygen in it to allow some really good aging of your wine. If we're going to talk negatives, being a cork, you can get cork taint. Now, what is that? That is over-oxidization of the wine. It tastes like shit, and you may as well throw the butter out. That's not good. Certainly not good if you're going to cellar your wine for a really long time. The only other negative, which is only a negative if you don't have it, is that your wine needs to be stored properly and in the right conditions in order to treat that cork with respect. Otherwise, you're going to run into aging issues. So if you're okay with all of that and you've got a nice, dry, cool climate, then a cork might suit your needs. But in the 21st century, so very recently, we've started to see a whole heap of innovative designs. These designs include screw caps, things called Zorks, which is a cross between a screw cap and a cork, a Zork. Righto guys, the more modern screw cap, which is really just a metal screw cap put on the head of the bottle of wine that's going to 100% airtight seal and restrict oxygen into the wine. Now, that being the case, we have a problem, because in 10, 20, 30 years of time, we may not get the amount of oxygen in required to age this wine nicely. Now, traditionalists may also have a look at that and go, you know what? Looks ugly and it lacks tradition. I couldn't give a shit about that, but the aging of the wine I really do care about. But for the pros, they're easy, it's a real good airtight seal, and it keeps in the freshness and the ripeness right there in that bottle. Today, the most common is your screw cap. It is easy, cheap, you can make it, manufacture it for your particular bottle, or you can get one off the shelf. It's easy, cheap, and you don't have to worry about cork taint. But cork is still around, and in some areas of the world, you are required to bottle your wine using your own cork. We've gone through about 3,000 years of wine closure history. We started with the clay, the resin, the wax, all that sort of stuff. And then we moved on to the cork at around 1600 to 1700, which is when that became the primary method of bottling and storing wine. The cork has remained the most prominent closer of wine for almost 300, 400 years. But more recently in the 21st century, we have seen this resurgence of the screw cap. Now this is just because it can get used in just about every size bottle, and it really does keep the freshness and the quality stored in that wine with zero oxygen allowed in. But if we're talking Bigba's favourite, I love a quality waxing. I think it looks great. It's really elegant. You can make it absolutely specific to your bottle of wine. It adds a sense of luxurious and quality, which I think is difficult to get elsewhere. I'm excited to taste this. I'm glad you listened. Go ahead, pop a cork. I'm Bigba. This is my backyard. It's just started raining. One more time. I'm Bigba. This is my backyard. Pop a cork.